Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Any CBRN guys here? I'm absolutely fascinated and terrified by the chemical and biological world. It's intriguing yet horrifying. Last night I began watching The Hot Zone and also bought the book. It's insane to me how close the DC metropolitan area was to being completely fucked. For those who missed it last night, The Hot Zone will show episodes 3 and 4 tonight on National Geographic. It's a true story of how Ebola found its way into Reston, Virginia in 1989.
Slav CBRN reserve officer in this thread, ask me shit.
What's the spookiest thing you've ever seen?
A private getting his head scratched by a huge metal pipe propelled by exhaust gases. Soviet vehicles came equipped with decontamination kits, using solutions or mixtures depending on contaminant, and powered by the vehicle's own exhaust power. For BTRs, it looks like a massive iron insert, which is put into one of the equally massive BTR exhaust pipes and locked in there with some, how it's called in English, damn, couplings. Yeah, that's the word, couplings. As the driver steps on the gas in idle, the exhaust goes from there down some rubber tubes and through some valves into a mixture and solution canister, and provides pressure driving the solution from canister's other valve and up to a handheld sprinkler, so it can be efficiently sprinkled over the vehicle and decontaminated. The vehicle crew must be trained in decontaminating their shit, and providing said training was our job. So when we were going through the loops on an exercise with some grunts, one of my officer comrades walks up to me and asks if we happen to have some spare couplings. These dolboyobi idiots managed to lose the ones in their kit. We can't lock the insert in place. Nope, only 2 per kit, and we're using ours right now. You know how it works. You better shit up some of your own, pal. Ah, fuck it, we'll just make do without them. I mean, those inserts are a pain to just put them into the exhaust pipe. It takes us 3 men to just pull them out. No way they can just drop out, am I right? Haha, yeah, you try that. Naturally, I want to see if it works in case some of the grunts I'm lucky with happen to lose their couplings. So what do you think? They assemble the kit, put the insert in, and order the driver to step on it. The men, a platoon, everyone washes one section's vehicle in turn, were standing around the vehicle in a semicircle, and my comrade had enough brain to order them to move about 20 meters away. It was not enough. As the driver gives the gas, the insert rattles in the exhaust pipe and, bees dying, shoots out like a howitzer round, makes a straight line for one of the privates at the edge of the formation, tears clean through his OZK hood and flies on for about 30 meters more. It just scratched through his skin, but if it flew just a centimeter lower, it would alter the layout of his skull quite dramatically. No shit. I saw it with my very eyes. We later bribed that entire platoon by convincing their commander that they need some extra training, and writing them all bullshit leave of absence tickets so that they won't rat us out. And we had to grease the scratch soldier by requesting him for important duties, since he's a bright lad and the only one who can do it, until the end on the exercise. He never explicitly asked us, but we all understood the implication of the situation. This shit surfaces, and our heads would roll like holy shit.
What country? Have you ever dealt with any scary shit?
Belarus. No, shit was boring as pissing on a fresh painted wall to help it dry, but we learned some theory and practice about WMDs. Some of our superior officers were Chernobyl liquidators and were very proud of the fact. By their words, once CBRN forces were deployed, they acted perfectly and achieved this record and that decontamination and this quarantine, and didn't take a single radiation poisoning casualty, which is possible if the necessary precautions were taken, across the entire force, civilian liquidators and other branches notwithstanding, but they were and are dumbasses about the personal anti-rad protection. Now those were the times, those were the forces, not these ignorant koziol we have now. Like you, no offense, Comrade Lieutenant. Some others participated in evacuation of chemical weapon stores to Russia and eventual utilization. But in their own words, it was the most boring-ass and uneventful trucking job ever, and much less cool than Chernobyl.
Do you have any kind of offensive training? Like if you have this biological pathogen, it has to be released like this, and this. Or this chemical agent is to be used against the enemy in that situation and in this fashion.
Kinda. Aside from the obvious basic training, we were also trained to command incendiary units. TOS-1 platoons and infantry with Schmel pipes on BMO, flamethrowers fighting vehicles. Overall, our training was 1. CBRN recon units, 2. Smoke countermeasure units, 3. Decontamination units. The rest was platoon-level command, but decon, platoon and company level. 4. Incendiary units, so their capabilities, their equipment, their typical missions, all that jazz. I eventually landed commanding a CBRN recon platoon, and 2 years later, I left. And no, there never was official biological weapons units in the USSR or the successor states. Any that were black ops shit, and any training they received was on black sites in some blackwater in Kazakhstan. The last chem weapon deployment courses were provided somewhere in the 70s. After that, it was all just lying in stores, rotting and useless, until OPCW, Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, paid everyone enough UN money to destroy them. They inspected our base once, and it was hilarious seeing them try to find some Novichok or some shit in rusty ARSs that haven't seen any fucking fuel in the last 40 years, much less anything dangerous.
Is Novichok real or just propaganda?
It was the name of a series of products developed under a very real Soviet R&D project called Foliant for a new type of a binary component nerve gas. It is known to have finished development and went into testing, judging by program's timing. It was never actually widely adopted in the military because the last chemical agents rearmament program in the USSR happened almost a decade before the Foliant project even started. It was 100% sure to not be 100 times more super deadly than VX or anything like that. Binary component agents are known to be inevitably significantly less effective than sarin. Their point is that while still in the two-component form, said two components are nearly harmless, which makes manufacturing, transportation, storage, and application simpler and cheaper by multiple orders of magnitude. All the previous dual-component solutions were pretty shit in terms of effectiveness, with Novichok agents supposedly being the first solutions that are at least compatible with single-component organophosphates and specifically the VX. But the chemical agents were not really in vogue in the time when it was developed, and by the program's end, there was no real point in mass-producing it. USSR was already fast on the tracks of WMD limitation, along with the US, and with the Union's fall hitting budgets really hard, and Russia officially destroying its main chemical weapon stockpiles, as confirmed by OPCW, the project was dead in the water. Nowadays, it is clearly agreed upon that Russian intelligence services have their own synthesis laboratory that develops new agents. Some of those developments are sure to benefit from the Foliant data. However, nobody still drawing breath on this earth actually knows if the chemicals employed by the Russian intelligence are really the Novichok agents. It is known that they are most likely synthesized in Russia by the laboratory analysis, but anything beyond that is pure guesswork and journalist hype. Do consider that the only people providing insights about the peculiarities of the Foliant program are Ken Alibekov and Vil Mirzayanov, who are openly disregarded in the academic circles as clowns surviving on Z super terrible GRU KGB secrets, as they have made countless impossible and anti-scientific claims and frequently contradict one another. Any people who actually worked on the Foliant program and survived are employed by the Russian and American government and staying quiet. But Novichok turned out to be a catchy and memey name that stuck naturally as the infamous Russian super gas that will kill you. So by this point, it's about as applicable to any chemical used by the Russian intelligence as to any of the actual chemicals developed by the Foliant project.
Are you allowed to say what chemicals and pathogens you've been around?
Yep, the gas mixtures RD2, RD4, RDS2, sodium hypochlorite solution, SF2U powder solution. The first three are used to wash shit clean from organophosphorus nerve agents, different ones used in different weather. The hypochlorite is against biological agents, and SF2U, essentially mega soap powder, is to wash off the radioactive dust. Oh, and of course there was the flu and shit from all the servicemen catching cold. Aside from that, we were trained to detect and counteract nuclear and chemical shit, but not to use any of our own, since we don't have any, and the general consensus was that they sucked ass even prior. Why drop a VX canister on some assholes when thermobarics do the same job but better? Everything we have learned about chemical weapons was pretty much about what fickle, unpredictable bitches they were, due to prevailing winds, the vertical air mass movements, the humidity, the pressure, the average surface volume. The accident described above is genuinely the spookiest shit we've had in my time.
Does your country ever deploy soldiers overseas?
Some motorized infantry from immediate reaction forces, the closest we have to actual professional combat-ready forces instead of Spurto-tier conscripts, were frequently deployed as a part of UN peacekeeper forces in the Balkans during the happening there. Our forces are frequently running internal competitions, with the winning units riding off to participate in the annual International Military Tactical Games. You may know about them because the Mimetic Tank Biathlon is a part of those. Yes, we also have our CBRN version, where you have to perform accurate and safe recon on time, decontaminate shit the quickest, make the best smoke screen, etc. The best guys in our brigade, 8th Warszawian CBRN Brigade, Stary Dorogi, participated in those twice in my time and met the best guys from China and Kazakhstan and shit. Didn't win the best prize, though. Russians are just better trained. Aside from that, nah, nothing.
I'll try to go to CBRN after my chemistry degree. Does someone have manuals to prepare for it? Or any advice or info related to it?
Google up the current gas gear in your country's armed forces and buy some surplus to train with. Google up the time norms for different variants of gear up and train until you can reliably beat the required best time while doing it correctly. You'll be learning to do that anyway, but if you're beating the required time slower than others, you're an auto dork. Download the field manuals or equivalent dealing with CBRN Recon, Decon, and whatever other shit your army lumps the CBRN with, and read them at least once. You'll be learning all that shit by heart, but again, being a slow learner is a black mark. Google up what vehicles your units are using. If you're American, it's Humvee in pretty much any case, and learn why that vehicle sucks from post by Army drivers. You'll encounter said suck firsthand inevitably, and you will have to shit out solutions on the fly. Head to the military enlistment general thread and ask their advice on the matter. They know the American enlistment peculiarities and have general advice. Unless you are not American, in which case your best luck lies on more specialized internet resources. Was there ever something more practical designed for field use than MOP or Level A suits? In Soviet countries, yeah, there are adsorption suits like the OZKF, but they are specifically single-use. Rubberized OZK can be washed from anything that is not nerve gases in special boiling setups, and explicitly provide much, much worse protection from irradiated dust or chemical agents than the rubberized OZK, and straight up next to no protection against the incendiaries, while with the rubberized OZK you can get doused with burning napalm and be left with minor burns if you take it off fast enough. The benefit of adsorption suits is that they put much less strain on the wearer with weight and overheating, and as such they are made mostly with Spec Ops forces, which might be forced to do missions in contaminated areas in mind. As far as protection goes, you can't get any better than a rubberized suit. I've always been a bit confused by how NBC gear was supposed to hold up in combat with bullets and shrapnel and shit flying everywhere. They are not. Fighting in MOP is, while possible, an extremely undesirable situation. They are not really designed to be worn while fighting. They are designed to protect your ass while you are getting said ass out of the contamination blotch really, really fast like. You're still fucked if your suit gets a hole in it. If your suit get a bullet or shrapnel hole, chances are you're fucked regardless of the contamination due to your meat under the suit getting a similarly sized hole as well.
While also this, in contamination, leave no man behind, loses some integrity. Real conflict use of chemical, biological, or nuke is going to destroy morale and discipline, especially nowadays.
Studied WMDs as part of degree in uni, if only you know how bad things really are.
How is it bad? I worry more about active shooters than WMDs. It just seems like a waste to stock up on filters and decontamination stuff unless you are a government.
So you know smallpox? An outbreak of that would destroy the world as we know it because no one is vaccinated anymore and there aren't people walking around anymore that survived smallpox and have immunity. This is what is known as a virgin soil epidemic. Well, why don't we just destroy it all? That will be the end of it, right? Wrong. Enter digital smallpox. You don't need to have living smallpox anymore to make more of it. In fact, you can save smallpox on a flash drive. It's DNA. Soon there is a real possibility of sequencers that can stitch DNA together one nucleotide at a time from the sequence that has been input. From there, the DNA is transfected into tissue and voila, live virus.
Calm right the fuck down, Gordon Amherst. That's literally the plot to The Division.
The Slav CBRN here again. A new smallpox outbreak would possibly kill millions, but it would not destroy the world as we know it. Reminder that smallpox was endemic to Southeast Asia and Africa, with nearly zero local populace being vaccinated, all the way, and no quarantine measures being taken at all until the 50s, like 1950s. And it did not even exterminate the weakened, starving local populace. Even deadly pathogens like smallpox are limited severely by their transmission vectors and non-specific human immunity. You do not get sick from a single particle entering your body. You need simultaneous doses of hundreds of billions of living viral particles for infection to overload the non-specific immunity and go into the exponential growth phase, at which point the specific immunity is required. An immunity that can be developed not just from vaccines, but just by your own body, as no known smallpox strain has exceeded lethality of 55%. With just those limiting factors in place, and the contemporary quarantine measures, an outbreak would be possible to contain even in a third-world country, and even if allowed to develop into a pandemic, it would not be an existential threat. It's dangerous, but what we have here is plain fear-mongering from the lack of education. We already can stitch DNA together. We have been able to do it since the 70s. How do you think amplification primers are made? The thing is, synthesizing the viral DNA is not enough. The viral particle needs to inject some of the unique viral transcription and modification factors in the cell along with the DNA. And those can also be produced in vitro. But just why? It's all insanely expensive and overly complicated. To cause an epidemic on a nationwide scale, a terrorist organization would need to produce hundreds of tons of viral particles.
I took one class of bio in my entire life. But don't amplification primers have to have chunks of pre-processed actual DNA? Is there some way you can create these without breaking into a facility and stealing shit?
Slavanon here again. No, it's synthesized de novo, a nucleotide after a nucleotide. Works basically the same as any other form of complex polymer synthesis. You take one monomer, cover the chemical groups you don't need by bonding them with an inert in the subsequent reactions group, separate your piece from the mixture, then add the thing that you want to the mixture and create conditions where it will bond to the one group you've left open on your base. Separate the product from the mixture, go to 10. Repeat until you get the polymer you want. I am actually using services of the guys who are doing this in my current line of work.
Do you think Bruce Ivans actually did the anthrax attacks solo? Did he even commit them? How much security goes into the transportation of virus samples? Do you think it's enough?
It's very much possible. Such an attempt would be prone to a lot of vulnerabilities, not just in security but in the efficiency as well. And as could be expected, it did. He botched the thing up, All the spores were dead by the time recipients received their letter and nobody got sick. It's dumb, but it's a dumb thing that could be done. It's very hard to do it in not a dumb way. The best possible improvements would be 1. Using your own transport instead of mail. 2. Using explosives instead of anthrax spores. And this kinda illustrates why the trucks of peace are infinitely more popular as a terrorist weapon. A lot, and it is enough, but people with the clearance will always have unlimited access to the stuff. You can bury them in paperwork and force them through a cavity search every time they leave the lab. But if a dude who works with microorganisms ever feels like taking a sample home, pretty much nothing in the world will be able to stop them.
What's the longest period one can wear a CBRN suit? Like, can you drink whilst in one? Sleep? Would it be possible to make one you could stay several days in while in a contaminated area? What would such a suit look like? If it's even possible to make?
Depending on the suit, but the standard issue suits I trained in required certain drills in order to piss, shit, or drink, etc. There was no little hatch or anything. You need to make sure you're safe, decontaminate yourself, and drop them pants as little as possible to do the job. The cool thing about the gas mask is that if you have the compatible water canteen, which is issued too, you can connect a little drinking tube to the top of the bottle and drink from a tube inside the mask. As for time you can spend in them, we were told that depending on the severity, you may have to change suit every 8 hours to once a week, while some chemicals like liquid VX, kinda forget the exact one, require suit change ASAP if it gets into you. And for the likes of CES gas, it doesn't matter how long you're in it, so long as you can put up with it.
The issue is that if a bioterrorist were to release a tweaked synthetic smallpox plague, it would exact a horrific toll before a new vaccine could stamp it out, and presumably any other bioterrorist with sufficient skill can always download the last asshole's copy of smallpox.x and alter it, so his smallpox can't be nailed by the same vaccine as last time. It means that every bioweapon can potentially be a new version which previous vaccines can't deal with. This also means that potentially tons of synthetic strains of near-extinct diseases could be released into the environment to have unpredictable interactions with already existing ones.
As if a bioterrorist would actually have the resources needed to do this.
You have to farm it from cowpox. Contaminated pus is harvested from cowpox sores, and then an incision is made in the skin, or a bifurcated needle essentially rubs cow pus into your open wound. This is not the sort of thing that people are going to be getting routinely, and you would, if smallpox had an outbreak, need to infect, incubate, and then collect pus from and redistribute said pus from hundreds of thousands of cows. The advances of dual-use technology are leaps and bounds ahead of what it was 40 or even 20 years ago. It's not the 70s anymore. A device the size of a credit card and using AA batteries is all you need nowadays to atomize an airborne virus droplets with the necessary anti-static coatings to completely expose a public venue. This was not a bioweapons technology. It's a coatings industry technology with dual-use potential. It is not out of the question that a relatively well-off terrorist organization, many terrorists at the upper level are very well educated, could pull this off, and it's entirely possible that such a micro-lab in the future could fit into a pair of suitcases.
That's terrifying. I'm a CBRN guy and I didn't know this.
The truth is the system is far more fragile than you think it is. NIMS National Incident Management System is awful. I mean fucking terrible. I have yet to find a person who has finished their obligatory NIMS training and said, yeah, I understand my place and role during a large-scale emergency. On top of this, the bottleneck in the system is always the hospitals. Botulinum toxin? No problem, LOL. Just put them on a ventilator and let it run its course. You don't even need an antidote. But what does the hospital do when there's 200 botulinum poisonings with 2,000 people showing up incorrectly thinking they have botulinum poisoning? Also, having a best friend who does polymer science and being in the lab, chemical or biologic WMDs, depending on how nefarious your imagination is, are not terribly difficult. Your imagination is the limit. For example, on the conventional side of things, You always hear a lot of, what if terrorists get stingers and shoot down a passenger jet? Why, LOL, that's way more complicated than you need to be. Just make some IRA disposable mortar and nail the airport, while all the planes are loaded wingtip to wingtip with full fuel and passengers. And that's just the conventional stuff, not taking into account advancements in technology over the last 30 years.
I'm starting my PhD program in virology in like a week and a half, and I got my Bachelor of Science in microbiology as an undergrad. I'd like to end up working for the CDC as an infectious disease expert. I'm obviously not an expert yet, but I've read up a lot on this stuff, and I'm sure I know a bit more than the layman. Ask away.
What are your thoughts on the 2014 Ebola outbreak, and in particular the patients transported to the West, in terms of what mankind feared Ebola might be capable of versus what transpired in actual mortality? Is it just not as virulent as we used to think? Is Western supportive medicine sufficient to keep people alive long enough to fight it off? Are there viral treatments that actually have efficacy now? Or was it good fortune?
Sorry, I thought the thread was dead, so I left. Found it again, though. That outbreak was scary because it completely overwhelmed the local medical system. Treatment facilities were overrun with cases, staff and patients were scared away from clinics, etc. Mortality for the epidemic was around 40%, which was about what we'd expect, maybe a little lower. It's definitely still an extremely virulent disease. Anything that infects 30,000 people and kills 40% is. Not only that, but anywhere between 17% to 70% of cases weren't reported, and so they weren't recorded. My thoughts on transporting patients to the United States for treatment is that as long as the right safety precautions are taken, it's worth the risk. The disease is extremely infectious, but not airborne. As long as the right precautions are taken, the disease can be contained and the patient treated successfully, because supportive medicine definitely does give your body a better chance at fighting off the disease. No antiviral drugs for Ebola have been tested yet a fake, but vaccine trials have commenced in parts of Africa.
CBRN Anons, what is there to know about the radiological threat? It seems to me to be the biggest unconventional attack a non-state actor could pull off with the least amount of resources. Just acquire an old X-ray or CAT scan machine, remove the radioactive element, build it into a bomb, place and detonate in a target area, and you've caused a really, really bad day. With certain nuclear nations seemingly being so willing to sell radioactive material, why has nobody done this yet? What am I missing?
You're describing a dirty bomb. Spreading of radioactive isotopes with a conventional explosive. Hospitals have radioactive matter in very small amounts, but not the right type. I forget the specs. Even if you get hold of vast amounts of it, it won't work to any noticeable degree. One of the reasons no one is doing it is a little-known initiative by the Obama administration which over a couple of years practically vacuumed the market, targeting countries which had nuclear activities earlier. You may get hold of a pinch here and there, but shady guys don't go around with suitcases with gallons of that shit anymore. Not even in grimy former Soviet Republic cities.
Consider my dear little motherland and specifically the Chernobyl incident for a moment. Consider that during the incident, many tons of extremely radioactive high-quality nuclear fuel were dumped into the atmosphere, along with hundreds of tons of less active but still dangerous irradiated reactor structure materials. Consider for a moment the fact that the most generous estimates for incident-related deaths, including people who died from oncology reasons many years later, or fighting the fires, or just committed self-termination under the emotional strain of liquidation and evacuation, still puts the highest possible death count way below even 10,000. Consider that all the Chernobyl reactor blocks aside from the Lucky Four have remained in continuous operation since the disaster and until today. Consider that pulling a 9/11 and just killing a similar amount of people without the need to acquire a nuclear power plant's worth of radioactive fuel and the means to spread it out in a metropolitan area would be literally infinitely more plausible. The radioactive material compacted in a CAT machine, or even 100 CAT machines, would be about as dangerous as a sunny day radiation-wise if spread across the area of Times Square. You need a serious amount of radioactive material to make a blotch that is close to even remotely deadly over any noticeable area. And even if you achieve that, the professionals know decon. Your shit will be largely contained. And before anyone brings up nukes are cheating in this scenario. The absolute majority of nuke fallout comes from the induced radioactivity in originally inert material that got caught in close blast. Dust, ground, and the metallic bomb components that got neutroned into radioactive isotopes as they were evaporated in the blast, only to drop over large later. In a dirty bomb, there is no reaction. You don't have a neutron shower to turn a mountain of inert material radioactive in a fraction of a second for you.
First, your assumption if nuclear-related terrorism is wrong. The end goal of any terrorist action is to change the policy or opinion of a nation. Closely to this goal is the objective to strike fear into the general populace. You don't need a nuclear reactor's worth of fuel. What you need is enough fuel to contaminate an area. You want something that can be pulverized and inhaled, something that settles dust around emitting beta rays. You want residual radiation to be kicked up by kids playing, walking your dog, breathing the air, and vacuuming your home. You want people to remember this far after the government tells people it's okay to breathe the air and drink the water. You want the people to demand politicians take a big dip from the tap and watch them tremble as they do. That's the point. Fear. It doesn't have to kill. Look at 9/11. Do you remember air travel before 9/11? I do. You must if you remember Chernobyl. I watched as people demanded things like the TSA, warrantless wiretaps, stop and search, the expansion of surveillance, the rapid militarization of police. Bin Laden certainly got something much more than he paid for with that. You dump enough radioactive material into a reservoir, or dust up Dubai and you'll watch as the nation convulses and tears itself apart. Do it more than once and watch it all go up in flames.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.